In this video, I'll show you the different types of lanterns we have, how we rig them onto a bar, and how we focus them. What we've got set up here is a parcan, a profile, and a Fresnel, and these all have different characteristics. Let's show you what they can all do. This is a parcan and the simplest of the units. It's essentially a sealed lamp inside a tube, and this is what the lamp looks like. There we go. It's very bright and punchy, so let's turn it on and see what it does. So as you can see, the beam shape is oval and currently horizontal. You can turn the beam very easily by using a glove. And I'll just pop that on. So they can get very hot, so make sure you are wearing a glove. You can turn this section here, this is the par safe, which is attached to the lamp itself, and the beam will rotate like this. There we go. And that's the only adjustment you can make on this type of lantern though, so we'll show you another one that has a lot more. The next unit I'm going to show you is called a Fresnel. These units will always give you a soft spot, but we can adjust the size of the beam. Let's turn it on and see what it does. So to adjust the size of the beam on this model, we turn this dial here. In order to turn it freely, we have to lift this locking lever out, and then we can make the beam larger or smaller by turning the dial left and right. And then we push the lever back in to lock it. On other models of Fresnel, there might be a dial on the back of the unit, and on others, there might be a slider on the underside. To adjust the beam shape further, we can close the barn doors at the front of the unit to cut off the edges, and we can also rotate them like this. The last unit that I'll show you now is called a profile spot, so let's turn it on and see what we get. As you can see, this is currently a hard edge beam compared to the softer edge that we got from the Fresnel earlier. However, using the knobs on the bottom of this model of profile, we can adjust both the beam size and the sharpness of the beam edge. To do this, we loosen these knobs slightly, not all the way though, or they'll fall out, and this will then allow us to slide the two lenses backwards and forwards to get the desired focus. This type of lantern doesn't have the barn doors on the front, however it has shutters built into the unit which can cut off the edges and create shapes with the beam. This is especially useful when highlighting a small area like a tabletop or around a box, or to represent light coming in from a window, for example. What you can also do to control the size of the beam on a profile is to use an iris. This adjusts the size of the beam to a smaller circular spot. To use it, you slot it into a gate in the front here. If I focus that fairly hard, I can use the lever to make the diameter of the beam larger or smaller. What can also be used in this accessory slot is a gobo, which is a cut-out metal disc, and this can be used to project patterns or images using the light beam. If I put that in, I can focus that as necessary. And don't forget to do these knobs up when you've finished. There's only one accessory slot though, so you can't use both the iris and the gobo at the same time. In order to attach or rig a light onto a lighting or LX bar, each lantern needs a clamp, and this one's called a hook clamp. The hook section hangs over the top of the bar, being careful it doesn't sit on any cables that are over the top of the bar here. And we clamp it on securely by tightening the wing bolt on the side. This just needs to be done up hand tight, but as a top tip, give the lantern a little bit of a wiggle side to side, and it will tighten up an extra pinch more to ensure it's nice and secure. The next step is that we loop the safety bond under this section of the lantern, which is called the yoke, and then it clips together over the bar. There we go. When you clip the bond together using the carabiner, make sure to screw up the collar over the clip to ensure that it can't become undone. Again, make sure the safety steel doesn't lay on top of any cables already on the bar. And finally, we take our cable and plug it in. Now in this case, our lantern's too far away from the socket to give us enough movement in focusing the unit around the space. So what we need to do is add an extension cable to this. To keep the slack cable out of the way, we'll tape it to the bar using PVC LX tape like this. It's usually black tape is what we use. If it's longer than needed, the standard practice is never to make a coil of cable, but instead to run it along the bar and back again to the unit. And this will be taped on with PVC tape using about 1.5 turns, just enough to secure it to the bar. So I'll do that now. Okay, and then we can plug it in and make sure it works while we leave it at ground level by flashing the light on and off again just to make sure it works. There we go. And it's especially important when you have a profile with shutters to make sure that they're open so that the light isn't blocked and you can see that the lantern's working. And this also applies to a Fresnel by opening the barn doors like this one here. Before the bar goes up or out, we can roughly point the lantern in the direction we'll be focusing to on stage to make it easier when you're working up at height. There we go. So I'm now at the top of the taller scope. The lantern is on the bar and the bar's been flown out, so I'm ready to focus. I'm at a good position. I'm behind the unit, so I can see where I'm going to focus it to. And it's also in a good height position, so I'm not reaching up for it. So I'm ready to focus. I can use the tilt adjuster here to tip the unit up and down. And I can also move it from side to side. And these two knobs here can adjust the focus of the beam. And it's a little bit of a top tip that if the unit is getting hot and you've forgotten a glove, make sure you touch the front of the unit and not the back, because the front can be cooler than the back, which gets really, really hot. As well as hanging a light from a high position, we might want the light to come from a lower or floor position. To do this, we need to put the lantern on a floor stand. To start with, remove the hook clamp so that we can replace it with a spigot which will fit into the floor stand. I'm going to take the wing nut off, and you might need a wing nut spanner to do that. Then I'm going to take all the washers and the bolt out. If the bolt won't come out, then we just release the yoke a bit and out it will come. And it's really important to keep all of this together on the hook clamp so that when you come to put it back on again, you know where everything is and it's all in the same place. Now we attach the spigot, and the bolts for the spigot are specific to the spigot, so you have to use the bolt that's already in the spigot. And you need the washer here that goes on it, and that needs to go underneath the yoke, like this. And there's usually a spring washer as well that will sit on top, and then you can wind the spigot back on. And usually you can just do that hand tight and it's fine. Now before we put this on the floor stand, with this particular model, which is the Source 4 Fresnel, we need to make sure the yoke is underneath so that the lantern is the right way up. But as you can see, it won't go that way. There we go. So what we do is we have to take the barn doors off. So, to do this, you undo these two catches on the top door, open that, and this will allow you to take the barn doors out. I'll put those aside for a second. And then you can swing the yoke around the lantern and it can sit upright. And then I can drop the spigot into the floor stand and set my lantern in position. And then my barn doors can go back in. And on the barn doors, there's a down symbol here that tells you which way you need to put it in. So if I slot that back in, you can see that the words up, down are facing you. And then you just need to drop your top door down and do that up again. And then take Now that I've removed the spigot and we're done with our floor stand, I've got our assembly for the hook clamp, the nut and bolt, which is set here. I'm going to take the parts off the hook clamp and pop them aside. The order that everything goes back in is this. The bolt has one washer on it that goes in from underneath. Then we grab another washer, pop that on top, and then the hook clamp goes on. The third washer then goes on like this. And finally, the spring washer and the wing nut. And you should be able to pinch that up fairly tight because the spring washer is providing a grip between the wing nut and the washer. And there you go, that's nice and secure again. All right, so is it scene 7, take 1? Starring Harry Harris.